What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we've got more Yu-Gi-Oh! News. We talked about this prior to the weekend, that we were going to get the schedule. We got the security force yesterday. We got, what was the other archetype the day before? I can't even remember. We got the other archetype the day before. I'm blanking. It's not Spriggans, whatever the other archetype is. Whatever. Today was free agents shown off by THIEFS, which is really cool. We got two brand new cards, one of which is this floodgate we see here called Underdog, and we'll talk about that in a sec. We also got some other news revealed that I was not expecting. So we had some other little things. We got a new Time Thief card, randomly, another Time Thief card, clean. We got a little bit of information on the other two deck build pack archetypes from Ancient Warriors or Ancient Guardians, not Ancient Warriors, Ancient Guardians. And we got one more V-Jump card that's actually pretty interesting. It looks like it might be potentially like a new age KYCOO, the Destroyer of Ghosts. So, yeah. All right. Starting off here, we'll get into the free agents. Let's start off with the new cards. Let's start with the Floodgate here. We got Underdog as a secret rare, confirmed, which is pretty cool. It's a continuous trap, and it reads as follows. During your turn, negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls. During your opponent's turn, negate the effects of all face-up monsters you control. Okay, so it's one of those double-edged sword cards, right? During your turn, your opponent's board is turned off. During your opponent's turn, your board is turned off. So it's a really interesting kind of card. I'm very curious to see, because it really seems like one of those archetypes that, or one of those cards that's going to fit into very specific archetypes, and it's going to depend on like what archetypes can really maximize this. What are the kind of archetypes that play mostly on their turn, at least as far as monsters on the field, and then even if you play during your opponent's turn, maybe it's a Trapper Line deck, maybe it's a deck that plays from hand or grave more often, because those cards aren't negated, it's only the stuff on the field. So it really depends, but I do think there could be some archetypes that take advantage of this. I mean, the main thing is you're just able to play on your turn without worrying about your opponent's monsters on field, and that's a big sigh of relief. So keep that in mind. It's a really cool card. I think it only is going to work in like very specific decks, and I think it might be one of those side deck kind of cards overall, but still really interesting. I don't even have anything in mind particularly as far as archetypes go that like really make use of this card, but I'm curious to see what you guys think, if there's any archetypes that jump out to you as far as making this card useful to its full potential. And then we have our other new card called Psychic Eraser Laser. Very cool name. This card is a normal spell card, and it reads as follows. Send one monster your opponent controls that was special summoned from the extra deck to the graveyard. Then your opponent gains life points equal to the original attack or defense of that monster, whichever is higher. You can only activate one Psychic Eraser once per turn. Yeah, it's kind of just like a nice removal card. I think the first thing I always go to look at whenever I see a new card with a removal effect is, does it target, and what kind of removal is it? This is non-targeting, and it is non-destruction. So it's a send. It could have been non-targeting banish, non-targeting shuffle, which could be a little bit better. Generally, just keeping stuff out of the grave is generally good in 2021. But I still think it's a decent card overall. I mean, think about this. If you can just bait the negate of Dragoon, you can just remove it with this. Yes, your opponent will gain a poops load of life points, at least 3,000, maybe 4,000, but you do clear it off the field. And generally in Yu-Gi-Oh, if you can like garner control of the board, life points won't matter that much. I mean, it may get your opponent an extra turn to try and wiggle back into the duel, but generally once you have control, it's going to be very hard for somebody else to take it once you're like farther into a duel. But it could lead to you giving somebody life points, having an extra turn, and potentially swinging a duel back into their favor with that extra turn being able to live a potential OTK. So keep that in mind. I think overall it's a decent removal card. It kind of reminds me of Mind Control. It has some pluses and minuses. This can only hit stuff in the extra deck as well. That's definitely something to keep note of. There are archetypes that don't lean on the extra deck too fully, and this card does miss the mark versus those. So yeah, I think like Mind Control targets where this doesn't, but Mind Control gets you a monster to your field to be able to use as fodder for linking off, Exceed, Synchros, Rituals, Tribute Summons, anything. You get to make use of that monster. Whereas this card doesn't target. You don't get a resource back, but you do remove one from your opponent. and it's a little more floodgated, right? Like, you can only get stuff from the extra deck, and your opponent's going to gain a life point. So they kind of push back and forth. I think I still prefer Mind Control overall, but if something like Dragoon is in the format and you need non-targeting, non-destruction removal, this card could find its way into a little bit of competitive play just for those reasons. So we'll keep an eye on it. I don't think it's the most insane card, but it is just a nice generic card to see. All right, so those are the new cards. The other cards they talked about were, were the new Dragon hand trap. Actually, not a terrible hand trap because it does put a big body on the field that is interesting, especially for Dragon attribute decks, for sure. But yeah, he's a secret rare confirmed. This guy's not confirmed for a rarity, I believe, right? So that's interesting. We'll see what he ends up being. We talked about the Link 5 monster that you can use your opponent's monster link off with. You just are going to have the other 4 materials worth there, which is really cool. Also confirmed as a secret rare. We kind of could have guessed this one would be a secret rare. We got the new Pot of Disparity, now known as Pot of Prosperity for the TCG, going to secret rare. We kind of could have figured that as well. So 3 pretty nice secret rares there, and then as well as the Underdog. And we have Angel Statue as a Rune, not confirmed for a rarity, so that kind of makes me think it's not a secret rare, which is really nice because I wanted to get this card. So hopefully this will be a little bit cheaper, being a super or an ultra. Yeah, it's a cool card. Good card. So yeah, moving on to some other stuff. Just want to squeeze this in here. We have Time Thief Temp Whaler. This is another Time Thief monster, main deck monster. It's a level 4 Dark Machine effect monster. Its attack is 800 and its defense is 1400, so the stats aren't too crazy. And has 2 hard once per turn effects. The first effect reads, you contribute this card, then target one monster your opponent controls. Banish that monster until the end phase. Interesting. The second effect reads, if this card is in the graveyard, you can target one Time Thief monster you control except for another copy of itself. Return that monster to the hand, and if you do, special summon this card, but this card is banished if it leaves the field. So, kind of an interesting card here. Okay, let's hit the first effect first, okay? The only complaints about this effect is that I feel like it needed to be one of 2 things. It either needed to be a quick effect so that you could kind of like just farfa your opponent on their turn as extra disruption, which is kind of cool. Or it needed to be a permanent banish, not a banish to the end phase, they get the resource back. You need to be able to just like gone, because this card tributes itself and it's just gone once it tributes itself. Like, it's not gone, it goes to grave and then you can bring it back. If you make an Exceed with it, it won't get banished, all that stuff. It's not gone, but as far as like being like an active resource on the field, you lose one and your opponent only loses one for the end of the turn. So technically that's kind of like a -1 overall. So I kind of just wish this was either a quick effect to be extra disruption, or it was just like a permanent banish. That would make this actually really solid versus matchups like Eldritch. Like, just summon this card, banish a Golden Lord. Just do that every turn until they're out of Golden Lords. It's actually pretty good, but unfortunately it's only till the end phase. So it's definitely something that's a little bit awkward there, but okay. It's okay. I still think it's an okay effect to clear the board for you to be able to go in, for damage and stuff. Or bait effect, bait certain monsters. If they have a negate, they kind of have to negate it so they don't lose their monster to the end of the turn and stuff. The second effect is also, I think this effect's a little bit better, right? Summoning itself back while bouncing something. Kind of reminds me of, because doesn't the New Girl dump something? So you could like go Regulator, summon Winder and the New Girl. Winder will add something, the New Girl will dump potentially this card. Then this card can bounce potentially Winder back to the hand so that it summons itself. Then you can make an Exceed, and that's pretty strong because then you just like still have Winder going into your next turn, still got the body on field. It's an interesting little thing, and Winder in that instance hasn't even used his effect to extend from hand, so you're also adding an extender to hand that you can use that turn or save it for the following turn. I like the second effect as an extension effect. We do already have some cards that are good engraved, so this does kind of fall into that same category as like Chrono Quarter and a Bezel Ship, cards you don't really want to draw. You kind of just want to like either special from deck or send to the deck to get their graveyard effects. I just kind of hope I wish its on-field effect was a little bit better. That being said, I don't think it's a bad card, but it's another nice option, and we'll have to see how it really works, because I think Bezel Ship's still pretty good. Maybe this power creeps Chrono Quarter to a slight extent. We'll have to see on that, but that could be something interesting there for sure. But still, not a bad card. We'll take any Time Thief support we can get. Next, moving to Deck Build Pack Ancient Guardians. We just got 2 little things as far as names, at least in the OCG. The first one, looking at this Serpent archetype, is Abyss. Note here, it seems to be more obscure spelling, so something like Underworld, Darkness, Abyss, or Gloom. So something just like kind of evilly, underworldy, right? Combined with a kanji radical that refers to something wet or watery. So something somewhere cold, wet, and dark. So kind of like a swamp. So kind of like, I don't know, some kind of swamp thing, which fits the serpent reptile mold. So still staying on track with the reptiles, because I have still had some worries about this archetype being just like, oh, they just have one boss monster that's a big serpent, but then the rest aren't even reptiles, right? Because we've seen that before. We just see archetypes. Think about something like, I don't know, just a generic example is like Crusadia. They just have a ton of monsters that are just like warrior, psychic, dragon. Like they're just like everything under the sun. But this does seem more and more like it's going to end up as a reptile archetype. So they just said like trying to like translate it to English. He thinks it might be something that's kind of like abyss, but abyss combined with like abyss, right? So like a snake hissing plus the word abyss kind of makes sense. I'm sure we'll see some kind of pun like that, but cool. It just seems a little bit more reptile-y as we go, and I'm very happy about that. Hopefully they're good. And then we have the other one, which is Do Re Mi Code, or Do Re Mi Chord. Which makes a lot of sense. Just a reiteration that Do Re Mi Code manipulates the pendulum scale, while Abyss manipulates the graveyard. There's not as much to go off of this. Like Do Re Mi is obviously like part of, I believe, like I'm not the biggest music guy, but you know, like it's a like a musical theory kind of thing, right? With different like pitches, I believe. I don't know. You got the wrong guy for that. But chord makes sense, right? So we could easily see that. It doesn't really tell us much about that. But a cool name. I think both names I'm totally down with so far. Which takes us to the last card we're going to take a look at, which is Chosai the Ghost Blocker. Very, very cool. I like his design a lot. Hold on. Let's take a look at him here. Oh, yeah. I mean, he looks dope. I mean, I like him a lot. He reminds me of, I forgot what that old card is. Ranshin? It's like something Ranshin. He kind of reminds me of him. Whatever. So, remember KYCOO, his friend is coming. This is Chosai the Ghost Blocker. He's a dark spellcaster effect monster, right on schedule. He's level 4 with 1900 attack and 800 defense. I like the stats. 1900's pretty beefy. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take that. And keep in mind, they also mention in the in V-Jump, without the effects, a monster with an effect that can mess with the opponent's strategies in similar way to KYCOO the Ghost Destroyer by sealing the graveyard. So that's really cool. This could just be a modern day KYCOO. Maybe it's a little more power crept on KYCOO to maybe be a little more relevant for stun strategies, messing with the graveyard and stuff. That could be pretty cool. So I'm definitely down. Although I think KYCOO is actually pretty strong if you had like backup for him. So I'm curious how they would attempt to do it slightly differently with this guy. So I'll obviously keep you updated on this, but really cool. I mean, 2 solid generic cards. I'm not sure how like meta relevant they'll both be out the gate, but I do think they could end up being seen in certain strategies. The Time Thief card, very clean. I mean, not very clean. I think it's a cool card. It could be played. I think it will be played in the deck because I do think it's just like slightly better than like Chrono Quarter potentially and stuff. And then some names, some information on here, and the new V-Jump promo. So a lot of news. We're only gonna get more. Tomorrow we got War Rocks. The day after we'll have packs being open, which means outside of these 2 new cards and outside of the 7 cards we'll see tomorrow for War Rocks, there's still 11 other cards we haven't seen, and I'm sure we'll see some of them with the packs being opened. So very, very excited. We're very close, and I really can't wait. So I will keep you updated on that, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, stay tuned and subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all Yu-Gi-Oh! News, videos, and such as that. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.